Well, I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
All right, hello, my beauties and bees. Who is ready to get weird with it today? Because we've got a fun one for you coming up. Now, for today's weird topic, I did kind of a poll to see what people wanted to see. Hold on here, let me pull the poll up actually, so that you all can see what I'm talking about, and you can participate in next week's poll, because I've started doing polls for the topic. That way, it gives me a little bit of variety, and there's stuff I can a selection of stuff I can already have videos ready for, and I don't have to cram like the night before. When did this poll start? There it is. Weird with it. 125. Let's just go to it. All right. So here we go. All right. Let's have a look here. So this was the poll. Okay. So weird with it for 125. We're in pyrokinesis at home. That's the art of controlling fire with your brain, in case you didn't know, right? There is freaking orbs in 2025. It's 2025, and we are still having people submitting photos of orbs as evidence of supernatural phenomena. Then we had those psychic spies, where we were going to talk about. We will talk, and whenever this comes up, we will talk about like the CIA remote viewing experiments and all that tasty stuff. And then the last option was Cabbage babies, which is a return to Tartaria. My audience does love when I cover these Tartarian stories. The orphan train video did pretty well, actually, all things considered. So this is kind of a spin-off of that, and I thought, since I was doing a spin-off of that, I'd go back to one of my mud flood channels and see what they had on the Cabbage Patch babies. Let's go. Oh, crud. Actually, I gotta Mind Unveiled. We've been here before. They do a lot of Tartarian mud flood stuff. But the thing that's concerning is that they have 319K subscribers, and this video has 279K views. Meanwhile, me trying to shed some like actual light on this have, not any shade to you guys at all. I have 30 some viewers and less than 1,500 subscribers. So we could fix that, because this kind of stuff, the people promoting this stuff should not be doing so much better than the people out here trying to debunk it. Ooh. Let me get out my guitar. Mud flood. Mind Unveiled. If you want to use that for your intro, hit me up, Mind Unveiled. Mind Unveiled.
We can hack World Photoshop. We began to notice a trend with old postcards from the 1900s showing early examples of compositing. There isn't much information on these. If there's a catalog, it's not easy to come by. But many of these are early examples of photo manipulation. They had surreal, real photo postcards, in which they would attempt to trick people with the illusion of photography. As we continued to look through these old postcards, a very strange and unsettling trend started to become apparent.
Babies!
It began with just simple baby postcards.
You mean people that like pictures of babies doing silly things that babies wouldn't really do? That babies doing adult stuff, babies growing out of plants like fruit, babies working on farms and stuff, or it's cute because babies can't really do that.
At first thought, seems like any ordinary postcard. But as with the Same Sky postcard mystery, where the author began to see a trend of a variety of postcards, well,
the music gets eerie. Mind Unveiled.
There's a category of postcards that deserves its own name and label, but it doesn't seem very well known.
Ooh, getting creepier.
But no websites or videos explaining this topic.
Go out there and start hawking these, Sumami. This is definitely, you can vibe with these.
We shall call it the mystery of the repopulation postcards. There are other names for this style.
The repopulation after the last reset, to make it clear what he's talking about here. If you aren't familiar with Tartaria, if this is your first time in the Hive, it is a conspiracy theory that there was a golden age where everything was like all flowers and rainbows until the fall. And the fall and it came with the mud floods in 1776, our timeline, right? And that's when our timeline began. It flooded over everything, and we rediscovered North America, and like the buildings, the old architecture and stuff, is all stuff that we've dug out of the flood, of the mud. That's why there's basement windows and stuff, I guess. Really, really weird flexes that these people have. The concept of earth filling around a construction site, around a building or whatever, the idea of building up around the base of a structure to build a road next to it, for instance, is totally lost on these people. They think, oh, well, there was a lower level and now it's under dirt, so that means the mud flood, not that they backfilled it after they put the road in, because that's how you build a road in an urban area, but whatever.
Such as baby postcards. By the end of this video, you'll be shocked at how many of these there are.
I know, it's adorable. But yeah, exactly. Them cooking in pots, them hanging in baskets like flowers, them in wheelbarrows. It's cute. That's the idea. It's cute.
We're talking in the thousands. We found one reference to what these cards were in a book on Amazon named Babylon, Surreal Babies, in which the author describes these same peculiar 1900s postcards and how they were deeply influential to many famous artists, including Salvador Dali. Yet, the author even admits that little is known of their history.
Those are literally kids playing a potato sack race. What's the problem here? This was a activity that people participated in at the time frame. I know we don't play potato sack races very much now, except for like at summer camp summer camp games and things like that.
In order to understand why we've labeled them repopulation postcards, a thorough understanding of resets, Tartaria, orphan trains, incubators, asylums, and Oddfellows will be necessary. These cards depict babies being grown.
Because it's cute. It also depicts them being boiled in pots and driving sports cars. Come on now.
There are many different styles within this category. One of the most interesting is the Cabbage Patch Babies. Variety of themes involving growing babies.
Cabbage Patch Babies. So I was born in 1983. When during the year of the Cabbage Patch Baby riots, or Cabbage Patch Doll riots. I don't know who's old enough to remember that. I was just born that year, and I think about half my audience is older than me and half my audience is younger than me. But regardless, this was the toy to have in the early 1980s for Christmas everywhere. It was not surpassed until the Tickle Me Elmo in was it 95, and then Furbies, of course, also had quite a boom. But Cabbage Patch Kids are the first one that's taken place in my lifetime. Keep showing the same ones over and over again. Are there really not enough for you to fill in this time with your music playing? Because I mean, you could just shorten that down. It doesn't make a very good case that this is a phenomena if you only have a handful of cards that represent what you're talking about. What's like? You could put a different musical track over this though, like some happy music, and it would be completely change the vibe. The only reason this seems creepy is because he's making it seem creepy with the music.
Babies on plants.
Mm-hmm.
Babies on mushrooms?
Yeah.
Babies in the water.
I bet you could find pictures of puppies doing the similar stuff too. Or does that mean puppies came from Cabbage Patches as well? Cabbage pie. That doesn't sound very good. What's in cabbage pie? Is that like a real thing? Challenge accepted. Oh, John and Sumami are gonna have a smoke off. Where and when? Is this gonna be on your channel, Sumami? I want to watch. Who's paying for your all's ounces though? I sure as hell am not. You'll have to procure your own ounces for this challenge.
Babies in a nest.
Storks! You gonna bring up the storks?
Babies in eggs being hatched. Then the babies arrive on the train.
You're creating a story with random postcards. Like, surely you see that, right? You're building the narrative by putting a series of postcards together and saying this is a story now. He blurred out their little butts. Oh my gosh, they're babies. Are baby butts like off limits on YouTube? Probably, but bunny. Yeah. What? Driving sports cars
There's
there.
something eerie about
Is
these photos,
butterflies.
as if someone's trying to tell us something.
Yeah, if you're conspiracy brain, someone's trying to tell you something.
We've also got kids in Cabbage Patches. Does this have anything to do with the Cabbage Patch Kids? So where do babies come
Here
from?
we go.
In the early 1900s, the most common answer given to children would simply be that the stork would bring the babies, or that they were found in a cabbage patch. But why would babies be found in cabbage patches? The legend of the Cabbage Patch Kids involves a young boy named Xavier who meets a mystical fairy bunny bee creature. So a hybrid or chimera.
And this was just the marketing storyline to tie the toy line together and give it a narrative for the Cabbage Patch Kids. Maybe they were based off these postcards. The idea of babies being grown in Cabbage Patch and delivered by storks has long been a cute way of explaining to small children who aren't ready to understand the sexual components of reproduction. It's been a way to explain it to these children for centuries.
And he follows this bunny bee through a secret tunnel behind a waterfall. On the other side of this waterfall, he finds that babies are being produced in a cabbage patch. The stork, known as Colonel Casey, would then come and pick up the babies. He even has his own uniform. So he's a worker, a soldier, as well.
Looks like the Vlasic pickle stork. So he grows cabbage and cucumbers, and he pulls babies out of the cabbage and he makes pickles out of the cucumbers.
As the Cabbage Patch Kids' official historian that would then deliver the babies to their new homes. Not only that, but there's an evil witch named Lavender McDay. She and her weasel and jackrabbit henchmen are literally trying to enslave the Cabbage Patch Kids to be miners to dig for gold in the valley.
Are there dolls of those
all the
characters?
exposition for the
Are there dolls of the bad guys? They looked kind of cool. The John with the jackrabbit. He was pretty menacing looking. Look at that. The weasel and the jackrabbit. Maybe that's is that Maya and Dr. Tapioca Weasel?
kids to be miners to dig for gold in the valley. You can get all the exposition for the lore in the story through their 10-song album. It goes over how they were created, to the witch, to even a lament about their enslavement. It's pretty dark. The original concept for the cloth dolls was created by Martha Nelson Thomas, and she called them doll babies. and the story really had nothing to do with cabbages or chimeras or witches. It wasn't until Xavier Roberts, or Xavier, like the little boy in the story.
That's kind of crazy that this is the guy behind Cabbage Patch Dolls, behind the whole lore and stuff. He inserted himself into the Cabbage Patch Doll lore.
Hijacked her design that it became what it is today. So I can't help but wonder if Xavier Roberts just came up with the story all on his own. Like, did it come to him from the collective consciousness? Or does he just have a soft spot for...
Well, I imagine he's like, okay, so we got this doll design. How do we pitch this? Well, we're giving babies to little kids. Little kids think babies are delivered by the stork. Where does the stork get the babies? From the Cabbage Patch. Oh, Cabbage Patch babies. Cabbage Patch kids. How does that sound? Yeah.
Child labor. There's actually a place you can go in White County, Georgia, where they do live births, and you can look it up on YouTube to see what I'm talking about. The bunny bee character also is a hybrid creature of two animals that both symbolize rebirth and resurrection on a mass scale. As we know,
how does a bee represent rebirth or resurrection? Bees usually represent, like symbolically. There's a lot of things bees do represent. Community, industriousness, hard work. I guess they do represent rebirth and the idea that they're out in the spring when the flowers are blooming, so they're part of the flowers' reproductive process. Okay, I'll go with that. And that's how that's their rebirth, is that they're carrying the gametes for the flowers. Okay, I will cede that.
No, rabbits reproduce in droves, and the bee symbolism makes me think of a hive or a queen or source.
Oh, it's what it makes you think of personally, not what the actual folkloric symbolism it means.
Where all the offsprings originate from. It would seem that this is some sort of reference to babies being created in a lab on a mass scale. Why were there so many
on a
orphans?
mass scale?
Most common answer will be, the baby boom. But this didn't happen until 1946 to 1964.
There's been more than one baby boom. There's been more than one baby boom in the last few centuries. I mean, there was a baby boom after the Industrial Revolution, right? There was a baby boom. There was a immigration boom to the United States in the late 19th century because of Irish immigrants who were being starved out in their homeland and looking for opportunity elsewhere. So a lot of immigrants showed up in the U.S. ports on the east at this time.
These postcards are from 1890 to 1910, and there's really no explanation for the burst of orphans that we see being brought into the United States, or the amount of orphanages and asylums that exist that no longer seem to be necessary.
It followed a population boom in the late 19th century. Yeah, high rates of abandoned children are going to increase with population and decrease with increase with immigration as well. But
the baby boom narrative be a way to sweep this part of history under the rug? The orphanages were all shut down, and after the 60s, people just stopped having babies and getting married after World War II, according to the narrative. Then there were
so the orphanages were not shut down not in the 1910s. No, because there's still orphanages today. Just orphanages are now not considered a good fit for raising young children, right? They're not considered a working model for producing healthy members of society. But yeah, the Catholics again are responsible for like 90% of the orphanages. I read some statistics on that when I was looking up the orphan train stuff on that last video. But yeah, most of the orphans are in the hands of the church.
Incubators of 1900s.
And the church won't let people adopt those orphans unless they're a heterosexual couple.
It's difficult to keep premature babies alive with modern technology, yet they were doing this back in 1835 in Europe. They turned this into a sideshow, where at the world fairs they would show off these child hatcheries, these incubators of live children, and for some reason...
Yeah, before this, premature children just died. Before this, and that's another thing that comes into play for why there are so many children that are surviving now, because there was the medical advancements during this time period in childbirth. Before this, premature babies would die before these machines were invented. I would have died. I was a premature baby. I weighed 6 pounds. I was a little thing. I would have died. I was in an incubator for the first 5 days of my life, and I had jaundice, so that helps too. So why was there a sudden population boom and the number of children in the world when modern medicine was becoming a thing? That's such a weird thing that you even have to. It's so weird that you even have to ask that.
The royals would come and witness these events. So there's...
Because it was a marvel of modern medicine. Before that, tiny babies like that, those little bitty babies that were the size of a beer can, didn't survive. You could not see a child that small alive. You could not see a baby that small alive. And now there were machines that could keep that baby alive like it was still inside its mother's womb until it was strong enough to take care of it, or to not take care of itself, but to survive outside. It was a miracle. People were showing up in droves to see Wick instead of Workhouse, exactly. But people were fascinated by this technology. Preemie babies that were alive. I mean, we've been burying these little guys for as long as there's been humans, and now all of a sudden they can live and survive. People had to before that, the baby would come out alive and they had to sit there and hold it and just kind of give it the best they can until it died. And that was sad. But now we can save them. Now you can see them. You can see their little hands moving. You can see them, and they're staying alive. It's wonderful. Okay? Better nutrition, not only for newborns, but pregnant person they had, prenatal care was becoming a thing at this time. Actual medical prenatal care. Before that, they did have, midwives and stuff, but there was a lot of superstition involved with that. Right? People didn't stop smoking while they were pregnant until after the 1950s, though. So people were smoking away.
This genetic manipulation cloning idea, in which these babies are actually being grown in some sort of pods, perhaps the symbolism of the Cabbage Patch mirrors that process.
Look at all them titties.
These do resemble plants in the way that
holy shit,
with stem in our fetal
this was just
and our whole.
Oh, we got to go back because there was just titties all over the place.
In which these babies are actually being grown in some sort of
titties. Pods. Look at all these titties. That person has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 titties. Got some titties here, titties there, titties everywhere, and I think that salmon eggs look like titties, but I'm not feeling that vibe. I mean, no more than eyeballs resemble titties. These look more I would say they resemble grapes. It is kind of interesting that gametes are always spherical, though, like that. Or gametes always produce an egg that's spherical. Kind of supports
perhaps the symbolism of the Cabbage Patch mirrors that process. Humans do
more
resemble
titties.
Plants in the way that we're connected to a stem
more
in the
titties.
fetal state, and our whole lives are spent ripening. In the fetal abduction theory, we typically see a nurse-looking woman with either a fishing hook or a fishing...
Fetal abduction. This is just another symbolic thing about catching... These were basically adoption ads is what I'm seeing here. This is come adopt these cute babies. We have babies that need homes. There's been a baby boom because technology and immigration, and now we have extra babies with nobody to take care of them. Grape nitties. Nitty never gets up early enough to catch life from the hive.
Net pulling a child out of the water. Perhaps the hook and net represent medical tools and the water amniotic fluid.
It's a metaphor that says, hey, we are overflowing with babies. We got babies coming out our ears. You want a baby? Look, it's like fishing in a well-stocked pond. Here's a metaphor for it. It's like they're growing right off the vine. Look at this. And this is a Christmas card.
Either scenario, it would make sense that these babies have to end up in incubators or hatcheries. And it begs the question, how did all these premature babies
that was
get to
actually
hatcheries?
This picture here is actually a good indication of what we're talking about with the medical advancements, right? This is all these different milk dispensing units, different kinds of bottles. They got different names on them. So innovating ways to feed an infant without access to its mother's milk and creating baby formula and things like that allow more children to survive.
And it begs the question, how did all these premature babies get here? If women back in, these days were having babies prematurely, why in such large numbers?
Yeah, I imagine that would be horrifying, Hollyhock. How heartbreaking it was to not be able to produce enough breast milk to sustain a baby. Exactly. That's why there was all these innovations and so many more surviving infants. They want to know why. It's right there.
And the babies all being babies, they'd have to have traveled there somehow within a short period of time. What are the chances that so many premature babies were driven from wherever their mothers were to these incubators all in time?
No, it was the Hippocratic oath that a doctor would take care of a patient and bring and sustain their life with any means possible, even if the parents couldn't afford it. And the option was give your baby over to these mad scientists, mad scientists that are creating incubators, or let your baby die. And then the baby needs someone to care for it after that. And the parents, of course, in those situations, normally would have been burying that child instead of it being put into the orphanage system. So that's what we're dealing with here.
And why do they charge people to view them, as if this was some sort of exhibition
Because incubators don't pay for themselves, Deborah.
Or a sideshow, and not a pressing matter of life and death?
Because incubators don't pay for themselves, Deborah. Seriously. Why do they do fundraising asking why healthcare agency and pre-FDR timeline is doing fundraising efforts using it's what you got. You work with what you got. Yeah, we have baby incubators, this new invention here where preemie babies can now survive. Come see them. It's only a quarter.
For centuries, the stork has been thought of as a symbol for new beginnings and family lineage. The idea that this creature represents life-giving events also makes sense because storks are monogamous creatures, and they mate only once every year with their partners that they've chosen beforehand, choosing mates based solely on personality instead of looks.
That's like Zodiac style woo right there, that cranes judge on personality. Birds generally, I wanted to paint all birds with one brush because some of them do crafting. It's generally crafting skills, dancing skills, things like that birds look for in a mate. The male, it has to do the finessing. That's why the males are more colorful, so that they're bright and more eye-catching, and they are even brighter when you look at it through the eyes of a bird they see so many more colors than we do, or so many more spectrums of light than we do, to see like a bowerbird building its beautiful structure, or a bird of paradise doing its wild dance. That's what birds generally choose. It's not could you say it's a personality thing? I don't know. Maybe if someone's dance skills or construction skills are part of their personality, I suppose.
Like many other birds. Now we've got kids inside a train. Orphan trains. Why so many orphans? Were these orphans taken from their families? Were they trained to instruct a new generation?
That's telekinesis, Hudson. What about the power to move you?
Of genetically created babies? Or were they womb-napped babies?
Womb-napped.
Kids growing on trees. Kids being carried by storks. The Greek goddess Hera and her Roman counterpart Juno also favor the stork. And I'm sure you guys remember that quirky little teen pregnancy movie from the 2000s. And I suspect that Artemis of Ephesus is an ancient fertility symbol.
You suspect? Who the... Deborah, come on now. I don't know her name. I'm just calling her Deborah for fun, but...
By the elite to signify their ability to reseed a new population. So we've got hooks removing babies. Kids in the water with a woman holding a net or fishing rod. Is the water the amniotic fluid?
So you're accepting symbolism here, but when it comes to cabbages, it's real?
Pulling children from the wombs of their mothers, perhaps? Could that be why there are so many premature babies? Or are they genetically manipulated? Cloning is not impossible. Just look at Miracle Millie. I think that the movie Aeon Flux is a great example. Hollywood is definitely alluding to this reality of artificial repopulation. The Cabbage Patch Kids sort of reminds me of those medieval occult books that depict humans growing from roots in the ground.
We're just using mandrake and homunculus technology. You know, we did a video on mandrakes on CrypticCorner a little while ago. You know, they tie these poor dogs to the mandrake because when the mandrake comes out, it's supposed to scream and kill whoever pulled it out. Like the scream kills them, so they make the dog do it.
Or mandrakes, which are known to have occult properties for making one go insane.
Babies are also ready to join their elite clubs, and they're even given top hats. Technology, clothes, and empty cities. Babies floating in on boats, all signifying children being born.
I know this song.
And then taken.
This used to be my Hive science background. It's like Danger something. Like Danger Snow is the name of the song. It's like one of the free songs on the YouTube song royalty free list, and I used to use it as my intro like way long time ago, back in like 2020.
And by the mother, the one with the basket. Yet this is a figure that represents the government's function as a mother, a corporate operation of generating
the government out there womb napping, because that's how the government works.
In order to fill their newly emptied and burned cities with new humans. Whoever made these postcards are trying to tell us something very dark about the world we live in, as if it's humorous. There's an extraordinary amount of work put into these early photo manipulations. One would think there should be a good resource for these old postcards, but they are rare and difficult to find. Babies with hats. Babies in the empty cities. Babies with new technology. Babies in the classroom. Babies being brought in boats. And babies smoking hookahs in a variety of different situations. Is this some type of clever reference to the cloning of humans? We know of the sudden rise in orphans during the 1800s, but where do they all come from? Where do babies come from? All we can hope is that our minds may be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true. Relax the mind and ask the question, do I truly understand what this reality is?
Mind unveiled. That was me at the end there. So, again, if you want me to do voice work for you, Mind Unveiled, just reach out and I can give you some Mind Unveiled. But, you know, you'd think, you watch something like this, right? And you think, oh my gosh, how could anybody actually believe that this is a real phenomena? This is just obviously someone writing like speculative fiction or something. But there are plenty of channels out there where this is taken seriously. Check this out.
Yo, how many times have you heard that babies came from a cabbage patch or a stork? Yo, how many times have you heard that babies came from a cabbage patch or a stork, right? These are old tales that our parents used to tell us when we were younger, or our grandparents. And if you go and ask any old person right now where they actually came from, a lot of them will tell you that they were orphans. Or that they came from a cabbage, or that they came from a stork. So, is there really any significance to this whole Cabbage Patch idea? In today's video, we'll be looking at the interesting facts on Cabbage Patch children, and if it was an actual thing.
I know what you're thinking. How did I end up in this situation?
Oh boy.
Trust me, it's not an easy story to tell. And honestly, most of you won't believe me. But what if I I told you that babies come from cabbages. Yeah, I know. Wild, right? I thought the same thing until my buyers,
Here we
or
go.
parents, as you call them, told me the truth. Now I get it. It's a hard story to swallow. But if you stick with me, I'll tell you everything.
Okay.
Well, I guess we have to go back to the beginning.
I'm gonna speed you up though.
You see, a long time ago, ancient alchemists stumbled upon the secret of how to birth babies from cabbages. This magic was regarded as the greatest secret.
So ancient alchemists, we'll start there, that look like religious cardinals.
Using the Philosopher's Stone, they were able to find a new way to give birth through the sacred cabbage.
Sacred
Why
cabbage.
you might ask? Well, rumor has it that they thought it looked like a baby's head. Makes some sort of sense, right? These cabbages were engineered to grow humans.
Does that make sense? Because you think something looks like a baby's head, that you should use it to grow a baby head?
I guess you could say I'm a homunculus. Actually, we all are. But the new church couldn't let that kind of power stay in the hands of a few alchemists. No, they wanted the cabbage secret for themselves.
Oh no, the church, the new church. I guess that's probably the Catholics, maybe? Wanted control over the sacred cabbage.
So they destroyed the alchemists, wiped them out. After that, the new church was in control of the cabbage knowledge and its power.
Yeah,
They
it looks
used the
like.
secret-
So the new church is the Catholic Church, which they believe was established in 1776 and rewrote history with Freemasons and all kinds of
to
nonsense.
grow their own army. Cabbage-born, loyal, and ready to serve.
Are you forget about Dragonborn. Are you one of the Cabbageborn?
Around this time, something else was happening. A reset.
A
The ancient
reset?
world, filled with advanced civilizations, was falling apart. Floods, earthquakes, whole cities buried under mud. Some say it was due to a
The Mud Flood!
certain group's affiliation with black magic. Others think it was just nature taking its course.
The Catholics doing black magic caused the Mud Flood.
So do y'all think
Okay.
it's black magic or nature taking its course? I don't know. That's a hard one to think about, because like when we think about Tartaria and Old World, we think about like these mud floods and no people being there, right? So they were just wiped out. Now, if this was some type of black magic, it's starting to make sense, because that's probably what happened. They decided to.
Is it starting to make sense to you there, friend? Is it starting to pan out? Because is it making observations and predictions?
Flood this world. It's like, we're gonna flood it, and then they start sending their missionaries out to the world to see what was left there. Who was left? What was left? Could have been later, hundreds of years, 50 years, 20 years. I don't know the time frame, but they sent them out, and that's when they started seeing who was around.
Whatever the reason, these incredible cities were destroyed and emptied out. Massive floods of mud buried many of the cities deep beneath the ground, only leaving the ruins of a once great age. After the reset, the church sent out its minions to scavenge what remained of those ancient cities. They explored the ruins, documenting everything. This became known as the Founding. The history we're taught today? Yeah, it's all a lie. Across the world, even in the United States, these cities weren't being built. They were being literally founded. The new church rewrote history, hiding the truth of advanced civilizations from this
So you get digging the cities out of the mud. Like right back to where we started with the mud flood stuff.
new population. They had to program the first set of orphans through the schooling system. And these orphans weren't just any children. They were the chosen ones, handpicked to become the elites of the new age. They were initiated into secret brotherhoods.
With the top hats, we did the top hats too. So we covered the. I think Mind Unveiled was actually that's the last thing we did on this channel, was talk about the top hats. So he has a conspiracy about the top hats too, just to keep you in the loop.
Where this knowledge of the reset and Freemasonry would be carefully guarded. These orphan brotherhoods began to clean up these cities, raise the streets, and create what we now know as downtowns. Many of these buildings were still buried, and there was a complete underground portion of the city that would be unknown to the general public.
This is what I was talking
still
about,
a problem.
urbanization.
They needed to fill
They don't
in
understand that you have to, like, when you build a road through, you have to backfill. So sometimes the first floor becomes the basement, the level 1 basement, when you put a new road system running through.
these empty ghost cities with people. These first orphans were infertile and didn't even know what sex was. But within the brotherhoods, they were entrusted with one crucial secret: the knowledge of the sacred cabbage. Crazy, right? I didn't believe it either until my parents,
So
buyers.
if they were infertile, are all cabbage babies infertile? Am I a cabbage baby? I was in an incubator, and I was in 1983, the baby boom, or the Cabbage Patch boom, I guess, when Cabbage Patch dolls became a thing.
Showed me these old postcards. These postcards are very real, and apparently, these Masonic orphans kept them as a way to keep truth hidden in plain sight. But it actually gets even darker than that.
Huh.
I was told that these postcards were advertisements, a means to sell babies. During this early post-reset era, the new church needed more minions. What started small turned into a full-scale operation. Babies were grown in cabbages on massive farms. This was how they repopulated the empty cities. Couples would come to the farms and pick out their favorite baby from the cabbage patch. They didn't really see these babies as their own, but instead, they were merely products.
Is there some kind of, let's not be inappropriate, I don't know what's going on there, but we'll be friends.
It became a cultural phenomenon to purchase babies, and they were sold on the streets, in carts, at shopping centers, and even at world fairs. These fairs were repurposed ancient buildings that were used to display ancient advanced technology.
So they weren't sold at the World Fair. They were displayed at the World Fair. The incubators were as new technology. It was that's generally where new technology was promoted was at World Fairs for a long time. They didn't have the internet. You had to do a World Fair exhibit and show your inventions and hope somebody would come on board to one of these rich people that come through would come on board to finance your patent so you could have production of your product, and baby incubators were one of these things.
And they would show off the incubator babies. These incubator babies were cabbage babies that had still not fully developed, and this tech was used to speed up the birthing process.
So I'm pretty sure I'm a cabbage baby at this point. Explains so much. That explains so much. I'm a cabbage baby.
People from around the world would come to see the spectacle and to even purchase one of these incubator babies. Some babies were even...
Well, the incubator babies would have been mostly... shouldn't say mostly. Would have. It's not improbable that they would have been a lot of orphans. Because... who else are they going to... most parents aren't going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go display my baby at the World Fair. But if, there's a lot of orphans that are surviving this preemie state now with this new technology, let's show it off. And then and seeing preemie babies, because they're so tiny and little and people think that's adorable, people would want to adopt them. So it was a win-win. And yeah, they charged money for this. Again, they're financing the technology through the exhibition.
Been sent over in the mail. Delivery men would bring these fresh babies right to your door.
That's crazy. They had Amazon babies back in the day. They probably had 2-day shipping too.
Not only that, but you could also have a stork deliver a baby right to your window. It was pretty wild times.
You could have a stork deliver a baby right to your window. Like, that's actually a thing that did happen, right? This guy's just... And the fellow... The reason I picked this video to watch is not so much about this over here, but about him over here. Just taking it at face value that I want you to focus on. He just believes it. He's like, yeah, this is the thing that's happening.
These storks would care for the babies on the cabbage patches, and when the time was right, they would be delivered accordingly to their appropriate families. Some say that the storks were delivery men, but others insist that these storks have been participating in this practice since ancient times. But as you can guess, things didn't stay simple.
Ancient cabbage babies and storks, come on.
There were too many babies. They started repopulating cities on the East Coast, but those filled up way too fast. It was the industrial age, and the cabbage farms were pumping out babies for the factories. These poor cabbage-born children were put straight to work. These miners... Now,
kids were put to work, even the orphan trains that we talked about before. It was a lot of that was people would adopt a baby to work on their farm. They would adopt a child to raise on their farm. It was a dark time. I mean, there were no child labor laws to speak of. It was the ethics of the employer, and if the kid was big enough to carry a shovel.
Were also miners in mining operations.
Sumami, are you also one of the cabbage born like I?
It's a sad truth that these cabbage babies were taken advantage of. Meanwhile, the elite orphans, the ones in the secret brotherhood, were busy cleaning up cities on the West Coast, preparing them for the next batch of the population. That's when the cabbage trains started rolling in. Trains.
Orphan trains.
Sent from the east to the west, ready to fill up the newly founded cities. Some of these babies were even left to fend for themselves, dropped off in the middle of a city with no clue what to do next. Now I know what you're probably thinking.
That kind of stuff is true. I mean, kids were just abandoned on the streets. In these, in the 19th century, in the late 19th century, it was a problem. People were not. I don't say people were not as ethical, but there was no person on top keeping people ethical. That's always been my thing. Oh my gosh, you're gonna get me bitching about libertarians. That's always been my thing about because this is a libertarian world, right? Where there's no regulations for like children, and you can sell children, and you can put them to hard labor. You can adopt a baby with the intentions of marrying her when she grows up. You can do that on your lonely farm. And yeah, maybe you get a little excited and don't want to wait for her to grow up, whatever. That kind of shit is what was happening frequently and disgustingly during this time period. Yeah, moved to workhouses and things like that. Workhouses, orphanages, labor farms, yeah.
Why? Why would they go through all this trouble? What's the point? The truth is, history isn't what we've been told. There are secrets. Secrets about ancient civilizations, magic, and the creation of cabbage babies. If people knew the truth, it would unravel the world as we know it. So after the repopulation phase...
And yeah, if you didn't watch the Orphan Train episode, you should go back and watch that, because we talked about that in more detail about that time period and the way these children were treated. I didn't know this was going to cover so much into that. I kind of watch this. I watch these beforehand, but I try not to absorb too much of it so I can have live reactions for you. I just watch to make sure there's nothing like super problematic that's going to pop up. But I didn't realize this was going to go so much into the orphan trains. But we did a video on the orphan trains. They actually interviewed. We watched an interview that they did in the 80s of one of these orphan train kids when she was super old, but talking about what happened in her life and how her and her brother were separated and things.
The church kicked off a massive propaganda campaign to teach us a new fake history. If we knew that we came from cabbages, well, many would not be able to handle that sort of truth. So we ignore it.
No.
Over time, infertility
I am the cabbage baby. I'm a cabbage baby.
was cured. But the cabbage babies never stopped being produced.
You know, this is crazy because like infertility is a real thing amongst certain people.
Infertility is real, so that means that cabbage babies are real. Dude!
They really struggle having children. So if this is a thing that's going on now, I could just imagine what was going on back in the day with their struggles. If Cabbage Patch children are real.
They're not the only...
And the techniques became far more
They
advanced.
clone Tyrone. Yo!
This is still done in secret, in underground factories, for reasons that cannot be fully explained. But fortunately, there are some cabbage babies that remember. They remember the history of how we got here. Thankfully, many are beginning to wake up.
So I could totally go on a grift that I am a cabbage baby born in the Cabbage Patch boom of 1983. I am here and I have arrived via stork to my parents. I could grift that to the Tartarians and actually maybe make some real money. I mean, not that I don't make money here, but you see the numbers of viewers you get when you take this nonsense seriously. Like 27.8k subscribers for the, I don't know if that's the Lux family or the Luxe family. 288 comments, 300k views in a month if I switch over to grifting Tartarian people. Why do I have to have morals?
And all we can hope is that one day, our minds will be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true. Relax the mind.
He's
and ask
watching
the
Mind
question,
Unveiled
do
too.
I truly understand what this reality is?
You drink the same Kool-Aid as Deborah.
Yo, Cabbage Patch children. Just think about it. They had the Cabbage Patch babies, which was like a thing. Everyone loved little Cabbage Patch babies when they came out. Maybe they were just trying to tell us something. Like, who comes up with the idea that babies grow from cabbage? Out of all things, you could have said, let it say it. You say cabbage. There's got to be some meaning to that. I'm just saying. There's got to be. There's no reason that they would say that and there not be no meaning to it. But yeah, guys, this is one of the most creepy videos I've seen in a long time. If you like the content, don't forget to subscribe, turn your notification bells on, and until next time, YouTube, peace.
Yeah, like, so what else do you cover? I've never looked into this channel too much, but let's see. This is shocking and spiritual TikToks that will make you question reality. A lot of spirituality stuff, it looks like, and Tartarian stuff. Yeah. But apparently he's it's one of those family channels too. I hope they don't like grift off their children. I hate that. I hate when people make content off their kids, especially when they make content off abusing their kids, like Dado, what was it, Dado 5 or whatever, Daddy 05, that guy. That was awful. All right. So, what do you guys think about the Cabbage Patch Babies? Is that a real phenomena? Is Bree a Cabbage Patch baby? Did I come from a Cabbage Patch? Did I get delivered by a stork? Is that real? Did I ride on an orphan train? The truth. Yep, the truth is out there. Yeah, the amount of dumb people make me question the tap water. Here, Jason. Family. This is a family channel. Yeah, isn't that wild? That it's... Oh no, I lost my camera. Did I? I think because I bumped my table. Oh. Anyhow. As far as... Yeah, I could have come from a honeycomb. That would be cute. Yep. All right. But I just want to know, I mean, as far as Cabbage Patch Babies go, what do you think? I need commentary. I need y'all to interact. I need people to comment on the video when this goes on Weird With It on... it's going to be a while out, but on Wednesdays. I need answers. I need to know if anybody else is a Cabbage Patch baby who remembers the reset, or if I'm all alone as the lone Cabbage Patch baby rememberer to have memory of being a Cabbage Patch baby in the orphan train. Yeah. So, Tartarians, I'm your new messiah, I guess. I'm the messiah of Tartaria. So come and hit the subscribe button. Join the Patreon, because that is where you'll find the truth. All right. Remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.